into a team fight, so maybe that's the thinking there. Mad Lions have relied pretty heavily on their 5v5 power, which Gangplank can bring a lot of, especially post-level 13, but we'll talk more about that in the game.
We will. The Aphelios is locked in straight away from Misfits. They are along the same thinking as you, Froskurin, thinking that Aphelios is just too strong to be left alone. Razor covering the echo with which he destroyed G2 last week. Could be picked once again. Of course, things like the Sejuani, the Elise are junglers we have also seen. And Set being left on the table means that Misfits Gaming are going to gobble that one right up.
Frankly, I'm a bit more aligned with Misfits Gaming and how they're prioritizing champions. We'll see kind of what Mad Lions have in store, giving away big power picks like Aphelios and Set. That could also be a mid lane Set.
Yep.
I've peeked into Febiven's solo queue, so I know that they have the ability to flex it.
Could even be a support Set. We saw that from Hanwha Life, I believe, in the LCK just a couple of days ago, and I've been extolling its virtues myself. There's the MF that you predicted for Skurin alongside a Lee Sin for Shadow. It's his most played this split. This will be his 4th game on the champ.
And this could just be a case of Mad Lions feel so confident in this misfortune and what it brings to their team fight. So they're like, it's fine. We know it's going to be the Aphelios MF matchup anyway. And they feel confident that they can pinch support pool on this other side and get a favorable bot side matchup.
They do have the option to pinch as we get into the second phase of ban. Sejuani was the last lock for Misfits.
And of course on 10.3, Sejuani did receive some buffs here. I think Sejuani is actually really important in context with Set. She really helps melee champions stick to them, so this is constantly a pair to watch out for, that when you have a now buffed Sejuani in tandem with Set, that he has a bit more leverage to get into the backline and cause damage.
Definitely makes me think Mad Lions want to ban out Braum as well, because Sejuani, Braum, and Set is going to be an absolute terror when we come to team fight. Zoe, the first ban from Misfits. We'll see where Mad decide to go with their second phase.
If it's going to be a double support ban, which it's not going to be now that Diana's banned, I was going to say Braum Thresh. I agree with you, especially because grabbing the Braum seems like such a clear answer, how well he works with Aphelios, how much he can deny of misfortune, how much he empowers things like Sejuani, but Kaiser was one of those guys that pulled out the Bard, so maybe B-Boy and Dinnick are a little bit afraid to blind pick a tank support, just because you know that Kaiser has already shown that he'll take a caster or a mage support there and try to beat them down.
It has played one Bard, one Yuumi game, so the Yuumi ban from Misfits seems fitting against Kaiser. Mad Lions, thinking about their last ban here, they already have quite a strong combination when we get to team fights. You said Mad Lions do like the 5v5, and MF and Gangplank teamed up can absolutely wreak hell throughout a fight. There's the Kiana ban, and it makes me think Misfits will look towards that Braum pick.
And again, this must be that Mad Lions are just confident giving away these power picks, because then you know exactly what you're going to face. So to me, I'm like, okay, Mad, you probably guessed everything that was going to come out from Misfits here. We already talked about the Braum and how it works so well with these champions. So is this going to be Kaiser pulling out, again, an Enchantress support to try to get the superior 2v2 down there?
I'm trying to think what else I would pick if I was looking into Braum Aphelios. MF, Rakan is okay, I guess, but it's very easy for you to get locked up. What else has Kaiser played? As you said, he's got the Bard, the Nautilus is there, but maybe they're going to bring out something. Oh, it's going to be the Rakan. I was hoping for something a little bit spicier.
The nice thing about the MF Rakan is that similar to the MF Leona, you get enough CC duration that throughout the bullet time from Misfortune, you can still lay down a ton of damage, and it is relatively difficult for Braum to lock down the Rakan. I think it can be sometimes a skill matchup, depending on how confident you are on either side of it, but he is quite slippery even if you do tag him with the Winter's Bite.
The worry always is if you get an Aphelios Onslaught, the Q from the Severum gun, you can proc that very quickly. So we'll see exactly how that bot lane duo goes down. Ryze is the final pick for Mad Lions, and now we're looking for Misfits. Is this set in the mid lane, or is it going to be rotated up towards top where he usually sits?
You expect that that would be a Ryze, so there's plenty of champions that Febiven can grab here if he doesn't want to take the set.
Well, he's already got the LeBlanc, Diana, and Kiana banned out. Those are his 3 most played this split. Alongside that, he's done Azir, which is now locked in as I look back towards the main screen. I'm not going to count myself predicting that one because it was already picked, but I'll give myself a little bit of credit.
So you have really well-balanced compositions on both sides as we kind of take a step back and look what Mad Lions and Misfits have put together. And when I use the word balance, I'm talking about that there's points of pressure or points of power that they have at kind of every stage of the game, the early, mid, and late game. We often talk about kind of scaling tools. I think to the audience, it's pretty clear where the scaling options are for both the compositions, the Ryze, the Gangplank, as well as the Azir. But in terms of early game, Ryze actually works really well with Lee Sin in setting down lockdown if he can get that snare and give you a free sonic wave. And so I would call Lee Sin in this type of comp will be bridge, and that it's his responsibility in the early part of the game to look through heavy CC lanes and kind of get this composition springboarded through the early game into those later scaling portions of the game in mid and late.
He's the guy trying to get Mad Lions past the 25-minute mark at not too much of a deficit, or perhaps in a lead. The bot lane for Mad Lions is where we think they have the most power just generally. MF and Rakan very powerful in the laning phase. Kazi and Kai'Sa have had pretty exceptional performances so far for them. Misfits, on the other hand, mid-jungle all the time. Febby and Razork teaming up.
But that's actually really hard to do with this type of composition because it is an Azir here. He's also taking a cleanse, so rather defensive. So I know that the analyst just talked about how it's usually mid-jungle. I don't think it can be the case this time around. This is much more about playing towards those side lanes.
And I love that. I love seeing Misfits having to do something different. And back onto Summoner's Rift we dive. Misfits versus Mad Lions. A matchup that if at the start of the split you had told me was for a position at the top of the table, I would have laughed in your face for Skurin. But things change not only week to week, but day to day here in the LEC. We have 6 teams fighting for that first spot.
And it feels like we have 4 teams fighting for 3 spots. If you kind of assume or agree that it's probably going to be G2, Fnatic, Origin, not in any particular order, just those 3, and then you have this big meaty chunk of the Mad Lions, Excels, Misfits, and Rogues. You have 3 tickets left and 4 teams that are competing for them, and all 4 teams look really strong right now. I'd say recency bias says that Mad Lions and Misfits have the edge, but you never know what kind of form Excel and Rogue are going to show today.
2 teams littered with rookies here have shown already their mettle on the LEC stage. Today they match up against each other, and Shadow is just going to start, both junglers in fact, on the bottom side of the map. We'll see what Shadow can do on this Lee Sin, how well he can facilitate, be the bridge for his team towards the mid game.
And we already talked about how one of the options that Shadow has as a pressure point is, of course, the hard CC setup of someone like the Ryze to help him connect that Q. Feather been paying a lot of respect with the Azir by also bringing the cleanse. Usually Azir just has to play it pretty close to the chest until level 5, and then he can become an auto-pushing machine for a pretty free priority. So early on, what Azir wants to do is actually get the bounce off the wave. He'll throw down his Sand Soldier, he'll try to push as hard as possible, get that wave to bounce back off. So closer to level 3 and 4, he's got the wave much closer to his tower, so he doesn't need to expend his flashes cleanse. He can focus on getting his itemization, his correct level points, so he can continue to push out.
See him already pushing in the lane. Humanoid without too much wave play early on Ryze, very mana dependent, that champion. Of course, when you get the spell flux, it becomes a lot easier for you to push out the waves.
A lot of professional players will talk about how there's kind of this window to gank Azir, that if you need to force him to burn his flash before level 5, otherwise he's pretty difficult to punish, especially once he gets access to ultimate and then has the ability to just disengage from anything by pushing you away. So we'll see if Featherman is punished in that window, or if he gets the free ride to level 5 and gets to just hard farm this one out.
You can see Forbidden already realizing that perhaps he could be punished from the top side of the map, places a ward there. Razork is also in the vicinity, looking for that Scuttle Crab spawn, and actually looks like Shadow's going to give up all prio on this early on. With Dandan pushing mid, with Bebivan pushing bot, Razork and Dandan have the opportunity just to try and force Shadow out of his jungle, but with no camps up, all they get is a whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah, Shadow just needs to play very respectfully to the fact that, like you said, he doesn't have priority in either his mid or his top lane, so he's really just information gathering and looking for counter ganks at this point. It's going to be a little bit easier when Ryze gets a larger mana pool to kind of compete with the wave push that Azir will set up. In fact, there was actually a ping that went down, so we'll see if he teleports back in and possibly tries to set up a play. There's a potential that Shadow could do Raptors, look mid, and see if Febivan missteps.
Yeah, there comes the TP.
There comes Shadow coming around the corner.
They know the top side is warded, this bottom side is safe. Shadow immediately disengages, goes down instead for the Scuttle Crab.
Yeah, you're essentially checking to see how aggressive Bebivan's going to be on the wave. Maybe he'll try to contest you, teleporting back in, look for some free damage, and Shadow's basically like, if he steps far forward, I'm going to gank him. If not, I got the Scuttle Crab underneath him, so win-win situation.
Shadow then just gets a little revision into the Misfits jungle. I want to talk a little bit about the bridging idea that you mentioned in Pick and Ban, Frost, because when I look at a Lee Sin, I always think of him having to get his team ahead, you know, get kills, skirmish early. Is that the intent here with the Lee Sin, or is it purely to keep the game even as Mad scale up?
I think that there's a couple of different reasons. I'll hold it though, as Razork is looking for a potential gank. I think he's also just covering Dan because the wave is a bit far forward. You don't necessarily know where Shadow is. You assume that he either took Scuttle Crab, then did Krugs as reset and heading top lane. But kind of going back to your point, we see this composition a lot from Fnatic, and by composition I mean the Lee Sin Rakan. The ability to send multiple people into the backline and get really creative about how you're engaging and starting fights, I think is a really cool combo as we continue to see LEC teams experiment with these two champions. In terms of its bridging power, because you have scaling options like the Rise and the Gangplank, and then Misfortune is really strong on 1 and 2 items, so a great mid-game champion, I don't think that there's any urgency that Shadow has to pop off in the early game. He just needs to make sure that nothing really goes wrong, and then he's a great disengage tool and has that creativity and that flexibility with the Rakan when they play out these team fights.
Now let's have a look at how his lanes are doing so far. Arome in the top lane is about 9 CS down on Dan. Running the Conqueror on that set means that he has about a 200 gold advantage right now, but in the bottom lane, it's about 100 lead for Kazi. He's, you know, about, I'm going to say 5 CS up. That's the number I can count. That was quick maths for you there, Friscoin. It was quick maths right there. He's about 5 CS up, able to force B-Void back, who has actually gone for the barrier on the Aphelios, where Denik is taking heal.
We'll hold it though. Razork might be able to get something on Humanoid here.
Humanoid's overstepped just a tad. Looking for the slow. There's the Realm Warp, but he can be stunned out of that. Broken up. And Humanoid, that was greedy, my man. Goes down. First blood to Misfits. Shadow here for the chase as well. Doesn't need to expend his flash.
So I think Humanoid felt confident being that far forward because he did have some deep vision in Razork's jungle. Unfortunately for him, Razork got underneath the vision, was able to make the gank very successful. And even in the fact that Febiven kind of disengaged initially, but was able to get back in time to find the necessary damage, because Azir does swippy swap away, and then Humanoid, I mean, there's no real reason for him to be that far forward. He's probably just overestimating, hey, I have access to Realm Warp, I'm probably fine to be here. But Humanoid does have a tendency to kind of make these mistakes or these type of hyper-aggressive calls. So we do have a pause.
Also felt like the flash out was perhaps a little bit unnecessary. He was caught up. He still had the shifting stands. He still had a lot of damage. So Humanoid now has burnt his TP and his flash. Is a kill down in that lane, and that's only going to continue to snowball away from him as Forbiven can keep putting damage down with his Sand Soldiers.
I like to think of Humanoid as a player that when he pops off, you can see that EU mids man moment. But I think he has an issue sometimes learning how to lose gracefully. And so if you actually just like camp Humanoid, it's kind of feast or famine. You can really punish him, as we've seen multiple teams do, especially in the past. Or he gets the better of you because he's feeling hot that day and he starts to pop off. So.
And that's the thing, like, if you look at his numbers, he's second in CS differential at 15 minutes. He's got the most solo kills of any mid laner. He can pop off. It's just sometimes it can also cost you the game. Do just want to give you guys information about the pause. It's Denik who's paused it, reported some FPS issues, so League officials are investigating to make sure everything is hunky-dory.
I think it's always, especially when you have younger players on stage, it's always just about time and experience. Sometimes you just need to play the game, you know, hundreds of times on this stage at this level so you can start reading different situations. And I think that that's something that's probably very true for a lot of the Mad Lions members. It's just that you know that they have the ceiling, that they have the ability to do it, and they just need the experience to kind of learn from each different situation.
And 4 of the players on that team are basically rookies. Humanoid only joined the league last year. Yes, he's gone to Worlds. Yes, he's competed on the biggest stage of League of Legends, but you have to remember, he doesn't have the veterancy of someone like a Forbiven in the mid lane for Misfits.
What I do want to focus on, why we have a bit more time to kind of extend the conversation, is some of the differences between Mad Lions and Misfits. I feel like they get grouped up, and we're always talking about them as the 2 rookie teams, and Rogue and Excel, and all these new faces, new blood. And it can be kind of hard to attach to, why am I a Mad Lions fan? Why am I a Misfits fan? What are the differences between them? And I feel like Mad Lions are a really cool team because they have the potential to be what I call a trident team.
Okay.
So it's one of the phrases that I use from the LPL, and Victus Gaming would be a trident team, and that they have the potential to carry from every single lane, top, mid, and bot, trident 3. And for taking the old kind of splice management behind Mad Lions, Peter Dunn and Mac behind them, and kind of teach them. It almost looked like a similar Splice style of the fundamentals getting set up, but now you have this new ceiling where, you know, old Splice was never going to be a Trident team when you had Chachi as a role player up there. But now having this new squad of players, I think that's kind of like the intangible, let's say, X factor.
Yeah.
The potential that I can see with Mad Lions and the distance that they can go, and I'm waiting for that development to happen. On the other side with Misfits, I feel like this is a bit more of a controlled team that you're not necessarily going to be able to carry from all of the positions. I think B-Boy, so far from what I've seen from him, is a great serviceable ADC. Like, if you set up the dominoes, like, he'll knock it down. Whereas Karzi will be the guy like, nah, I'm carrying the team fight right now. But there's that double-edged sword in the same way that Humanoid can't necessarily lose gracefully. I think Karzi sometimes finds himself in the similar situation.
And I totally agree with you there, Fosk. It's actually really interesting to see how that develops for a team, because Misfits, they do have that more controlled style. Of course, they've got Amazing as their strategic coach, and he was always on teams that were a little bit more controlled, a little bit more about him having impact as a jungler, but being more of a utility player rather than a carry for himself.
I think it was just that guy on your screen previously a second when it flashed Febiven, and I think when we got to sit down in PGL and really talk to Febiven and sitting next to Dan, Febiven was like so confident that we can beat anyone. You know, there's no question in his mind that you just have to believe that you have the potential to be the best. And I think with Febiven now in form, especially if he starts popping off, if he's on a champion that roams around, something like his Kiana, you can really see almost like a spiritual difference in Misfits, and that if you have a guy like him who has so much experience behind him, can read so many different situations, and if he feels like he's in control and he's leading the charge, then suddenly Misfits have this new breath of life in them, and boom, nailed the fill. We're back in game.
Perfect, Phil. Gave you information, talked about things.
But to finish my point, it can be a little bit harder. I'll hold it though.
The dive's going to happen on Aroma. He pops down the cannon barrage. Dan has to flash away, but that's the second kill of the game for Misfits. Razork going up towards top and helping Dan out.
No Trident today when Gangplank gets stove.
Yep.
I was just about to say, it's a little bit harder for Febiven to start popping off and leading the charge if he's on a champion like Azir, which can be quite stationary sometimes.
And the last time he played Azir was against G2. He only went 2-3-5, but you look at Dan, he was 5-2-5. You look at B-Boy, he was 5-2-10. Yes, it was the game where Caps kind of inted quite a lot, but it shows that it isn't purely on Febby to carry as he jumps straight onto Humanoid. There's no flash on this Rise. Remember, he burned it earlier. And Razork with his second kill of the game. Misfits are coming out swinging.
And that was the key thing there. We talked about coming into the game that it would probably be much harder for Misfits this time around to play through the mid lane because it was an Azir. But as you said, with Rise not having flash, Razork just taps top lane, immediately walks into mid lane, and Misfits are opening up very strong in the first 7 minutes of this game. That's a massive gold lead this early on.
Yeah, 2,000 gold ahead so early in the game, and you're going to start seeing it coming out in items. Barmy Cinder already on Razork. He's got Skirmisher's Saber. We'll be able to upgrade that soon to a full Cinder Hulk. We'll have another look at that play towards mid, because Misfits have
just
total vision
clean
control, and it's, yeah, super easy. Shurima shuffle there.
The swoop-de-doop.
The swoopity-doop.
Yep, nice use of the flash right there for Febiven to get into the position.
Oh.
He shouldn't be punished for it.
Humanoid should just be able to walk away from this one. Misfits doing the 8-minute swap, but instead of sending their bot lane back, they literally just run up through the river. The 8-minute swap, of course, is going for the Rift Herald when it spawns.
And the nice thing is that there's no dragon to take, so it's not like there's any objective trade. Mad to get that one pretty early on, trading their Gangplank's life. But unfortunately for Mad Lions here, they're not going to find themselves in an opportunity to get priority back into the top side of the map, because the Tiamat's now been completed for Dan, and Gangplank still has a ways before you can compete with kind of that type of wave clear. And then you have an Azir in your mid lane, so this is a really easy call for Misfits to make.
They grab it, Dan will go back down towards the bottom lane, you have to assume. Yeah, he recalls. And Misfits will gain total control of this top side jungle, or at least as much as they can. Does Shadow realize? Pops the Sonic Wave, hits Razork, and he did know Kaiser was waiting just around the corner. But look at this, 2 plates already down on the mid lane turret. Febby has a blue, Humanoid does not. It's going to be a lot harder for Humanoid to use his spells effectively to clear out the wave.
And of course, 2 is kind of that magic number when the Herald comes down to make sure that the tower gets crushed. The question is going to be, where are they going to use the Herald? It's, of course, in Razork's hands, which we normally like to see it in the jungler's hands because there's more options for flexibility to use it. It seems like it's going to be mid.
think this makes the most sense. Shadow?
But the thing is that if you don't need to open up mid lane if they use it. He could actually just be walking by to get it down to Dan. But it's like Azir is fine to sit here and just kind of hoover up CS.
Or just do this as Razork pops the prison across the wall. We wondered if Febby and Razork would be able to team up on these two champs. Well, they're doing it well so far. Cannon Barrage coming out. Kaiser flashes forward, lands the knockup, and Febby will die. Kaiser gets the first kill of the game for Mad Lions, but it's Misfits who are well in front so far.
I mean, unfortunately for Mad Lions fans, this is turning into a mid-difference type of game right now. Humanoid is just getting punished in this 2v1, and time again, Febvin is finding these slide maneuvers on him. So I was gonna say, you could just sit there and hoover up all of the CS, continue to scale as Azir, and Febvin's like, nah, I'd rather just farm the champion.
Who needs to scale? It's got the Nash's Tooth first. We know how much mid laners hate Luden's first on Azir, and once again,
so clean.
It's so clean. It's just perfectly positioned from Febby. I assume Humanoid just thought he was safe because he was so far back underneath the turret.
Also credit to Razork, the ability to see where this Rise is going to land. You know, there's not really a delay. It was kind of Rise got swept to the side immediately into a Sejuani ultimate, perfectly chained. So really nicely done between the mid of Misfits and, Febvin and Razork. We talked about it how I felt that Misfits had the stronger mid-jungle duo, but I gave the emphasis to Mad Lions for their bot lane. Unfortunately for Karzi and Kaiser, they've been unable to really participate in anything, although have opened up a 10 CS lead in their favor.
Yeah, and we saw that developing early on.
2 for 1.
Really, as a support main, this is top notch.
That's payday.
He's going and getting a nice dono after this. He's like, oh, I can afford it. But only 2 wards out there for Kaiser as Misfits now look to push in this middle lane. Rift Herald is popped. We did wonder where it was going to be put, but that should just charge in and take down the plates. Looks like Danik is going to come across. I believe, Febby will be here in time to pick up all of the gold. So
and really well timed. Not only was it Febby who picked up all of that gold from all of those plates, it's also 20 minutes before the Cloud Dragon spawn, so you shove down mid lane, you put up the Azir tower, you now have perma priority into this mid, which means that Misfits will have so much faster access and rotation into this river for the Drake setup.
Yeah, second dragon will be on the menu in about 8 seconds. Razork jumping onto Karzi here. Does have the flash and the heal, and no vision in the jungle meant the Misfits decide to back away, but this is going to be another plate in the pockets of B-Voy. And it felt like Mad Lions, you know, wanted to get to scaling. You even see Arome's got the cull on the gangplank. He's trying to get to that point, trying to get to his power, but sitting on only 2 parts of the Trinity Force, it's a long way away, and Shadow has not had that bridging effect that we hoped he would have early in this game.
I think it's more so credit to Razork. I'll have to go back and kind of review some of the jungle pathing, but the fact that it feels like Sejuani has kind of been first come, first served to a lot of these games, although Shadow might get his opportunity here.
And that's going to be pretty tanky underneath this turret. It's quite hard to kill a set when he builds up that grit, and tower will, well, the dive won't happen. It looks like Shadow is just going to retreat in the bush, but Misfits, maybe they have something on the menu. This is something Febby does so well, pushes up the lane and then walks into darkness.
And Gangplank needs to back it up pretty quick here. Yeah, he suspects.
A smart move there from Arome in the top lane, just gets back underneath this turret. Of course, could still be dive, but Gangplank's always a little tricky to dive because he has the remove scurvy, the oranges, and those barrels can do a lot of damage if you are in the wrong place.
It's getting a little bit better, however, it's still pretty dire, especially when you look across the itemization of everyone. It feels like Misfits are definitely accelerating the game in that they're continuing to get a lot of plates, but they are going to be fine kind of pumping the brakes here and not necessarily over-forcing.
Arome's used the kind of barrage, but no one took aggro, so Misfits just back away as soon as they see that Karzi and Kaiser are on their way. Tower falls in the bottom lane. Misfits, 4,500 gold up at the 13-minute mark, Frost.
It should be a bit of a lull here, though, unless Mad Lions just make a massive posturing error and then Misfits feel like they can punish, because again, we're kind of in between items and there's so much gold that Misfits want to get back and to spin, complete those items before they start to go back on the hunt. So I like the fact that Mad have kind of found this window. They were first to rotation and they're trying to get something back on the board before the plates disappear. Yeah,
they'll get a couple of plates, or one at least. Tower plates now fall off and Mad are still at about a 4,000 gold deficit.
But the backs now came in, so you're starting to see some of these completed items, particularly the Essence Reaver now from Aphelios, whereas MF is still kind of in between her KFC variety buckets. Got some hammer, got some BF sword, has a stopwatch. but not the full meal.
I do love a good variety bucket, though. And it can be very delicious. Not great for the hips, but delicious on the lips. Mad. It's true. Is that not what you say?
Yep.
You use that all the time, Foss. Okay, 2.5 minutes on the next dragon. Rift Herald has spawned, and you can see Misfits have 4 players on the top side of the map in anticipation, and there's no vision for Mad at all.
Unfortunately, it feels like Mad Lions are probably going to try to agree into like a gentleman's handshake where they avoid Misfits for a while and try to race towards those items. And so we've split the map. The unfortunate part for Mad Lions fans is that the second Rift Herald is on the side where Misfits are strong. So this dive really needs to pay off here for Mad.
Well, this is the Gleaming Quill, but jumps in with the quickness. Shadow still has the kick. Dandan's going to knock him back. The Showstopper connects. There's the kick. Dragon's Rage back. Huge shield from the Haymaker, but Dandan will be chased down, and underneath the turret he will fall. Shadow just about survives, while Misfits are pushing that top lane tier 2.
Yeah, so the gank did pay off. That said, even if it had gone faster, this is still going to be a pretty massive win for Misfits because they got the tower and the second Rift Herald, and now they're moving it into the mid lane. This is Misfits way ahead of the play. Mad Lions are really struggling to get their foot back in this game.
So Razork doesn't actually even need to use the Rift Herald here. I thought maybe he'd use it to make sure that turret falls.
Oh, and our observer is showing us that the bot tower is still up. Maybe Humanoid's able to push it over. So at least there's a consolation prize for Mad Lions.
Misfits playing a pretty impeccable game so far. A couple of kills across to Mad Lions, but still that 4,000 gold lead continues for them. And with 6 games won in a row, Misfits are approaching very much top 2 contenders in my books. They've beaten G2 in that time. They've beaten Origin in that time.
Misfits have shown that they're one of our teams that accelerate and kind of beat teams without having to rely on their scaling tools. It especially helps in this game because they've kind of springboarded a lot of those scaling options. The fact that Fevvin has access to his Ludens already. You almost have the Trinity Force being completed for Dandan, so not looking for that Black Cleaver on the set. Means that he's going to be exceptionally strong.
And you can see Mad Lions, they're trying to find the scraps. They're trying to find the play, and I think it's going to be a realm warp up here towards the top side. Now, Razork is waiting. He knows something's going on. He jumps towards Shadow. Humanoid locks him up with the Rune Prism, but the rest of Misfits are on their way. The Showstopper will pull back Shadow. He's going to try and get away, but he's pulled back once again with a Face Breaker. Perfect execution there by Misfits, and they're chasing Humanoid down. One more auto for the concussive blows. Sect gets a double in the top lane.
It feels like the only thing that Misfits didn't get out of that fight was connecting the Aphelios ultimate. Otherwise, everything turned their way, and they're forcing Mad Lions off of the farm. They're picking up these kills. While all that was happening, they didn't even need Fevvin. He pushed, I think, 1.5 to 2 waves down there. So we take another look at that one. And Razork has just been on fire this game. So initially sets it up, Dandan goes into the ultimate, and again, it's that immediate chain CC. Razork's been able to do it with Fevvin on the Azir. He does it now with Dandan on the set, and he's just so crisp in how well he's pairing with his team.
So I didn't actually see it. Razork flashes for the stun during that as well, locking Humanoid in place. Humanoid probably would have been dead anyway, didn't really have anywhere to go, but there's a degree of synergy and a degree of outplay so far from Misfits in this game. Now looking impeccable. Febby going in once again. Aroma's going to flash away, but Razork's here once again in time, and here comes the fight. Febby flashes away with the cleanse. Aroma retreating back underneath the turret. Dennick's here for the party. Long range onslaught, no, moonshot, sorry, from the Aphelios. The Q from the sniper. And Misfits still haven't used that Rift Herald Frost. They've taken every tower but the inhib turrets now. We're only 18 minutes in the game as well. They are playing at a blistering pace.
And it's exceptionally clean right now. You push down that bot tower, you have complete access over this Infernal Drake. It's going to be pretty free to pick this one up. Probably don't even need to bring 2 members, but they're going to do it anyway. And like you said, they're still sitting on the Herald.
Humanoid looking for the second turret of the game from Mad. Not going to be able to acquire it as of yet. He has been farming up in the side lane, has about a 15 CS lead now over Febby, but still hasn't got the Seraphs, only sitting on the Rod of Ages at 4 stacks, whereas Forbidden is at 2 completed items, not 4. You've got a Trinity Force finished on Dandan, you've got the Runans now on B-Boy as well. If a team fight erupts with a couple of members, Misfits are well ahead of the game.
I guess kind of the nice thing is that the Baron hasn't spawned yet, so it's not like Misfits can even...
When you're looking for that sort of consolidation prize.
Well, it's that sentiment of, yeah, if a 5v5 team fight starts right now, Misfits just have such a gold lead in terms of their itemization that it's going to be a pretty clear favorite to back them here. for Mad Lions right now, you're still trying to bounce as many waves as possible into Humanoid's hands, get him closer to that itemization you talked about, like the Archangels. And because it's armor and health right now on Dan, maybe you try to get Rise to a point where he can stand across from Set. I'm not super familiar on how or where that breaking matchup point would be for Rise versus Set, if he'd ever win over into the side lane there, but doesn't have any MR so far.
Well, Rifthold is plodding its way along this top lane. You can see Humanoid has teleport. The tower comes down. Rifthold still at full HP. She's going to get a charge in at least onto the turret. And Misfits actually 5 members strong here because Dandan's on his way.
Eyes on Razork and Febiven because they see Humanoid's away. They want to start the fight.
The route. Kazi goes gold and Kaiser's going to lock it up, but the turret's already gone. And Misfits can keep pushing in because Dandan, knocked away with the Dragon's Rage kick. This should be the inhib. Misfits secure it. First inhibitor of the game, 20 minutes in, and still Humanoid pushes in the bottom lane, all on his lonesome, all by himself. Kaiser jumping in, but a great stopwatch from Razork. There's the bullet time. Connects on 3, but Kaiser falls. Aromi's going to try and chase Bebby here, but Bebby can just shuffle his way away, and Humanoid backs away from the inhibitor tower.
They're actually pinging onto the Baron right now. I'm curious how brave Misfits are going to be, especially because there's a lot of vision from Mad Lions. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger on the Baron because they found the ward, although they've canceled their backs. Oh, no.
Okay, is Humanoid going to teleport in?
This could be the turning point.
This could be it for Skuin. One moment for Mad. Oh, Aromi doesn't know. Aromi doesn't know. Behind enemy lines, they back. Okay, I was hoping for more than that, I'll be honest, Ross, but...
No, they definitely... Misfits are sitting on so much gold and didn't have the health. They actually just wanted to go out because, like, okay, if we reset, get back control of our waves, we can set up the Baron. Like, we don't need to overreach and force here because if they did and they were punished, that's the one way that Mad get back into this game. So really nice patience shown from the Misfits squad to not overreach their hand and get a bit too greedy. And the read here was Misfits see that Humanoid's on the side, so they have to find this engage, and they want to ace here because if they kill Mad Lions, they end the game. Shadow saves everyone's life by disengaging Dan through a member of Misfits, but most importantly, making sure that the set doesn't get the ultimate off. And then at this point, Mad Lions actually just want to chase. If they get kills, that's fine, but you're not necessarily looking for the ace there. They're just looking to buy time for Humanoid.
You can see Kaiser trying to do what he can on the Rakan there, looking for the engage, but Razork quick on the trigger with the stopwatch. And no one else was really squishy enough to fall. It's a bit of a shame, of course, for Mad that both the kills in that bottom lane did go over to Kaiser. And now they can two-man this quite easily. Azir will just shred through a Baron very quickly, and the rest of the team are just sitting in mid. You can see no vision from Mad. They have no idea this is going on unless they have the Spidey sense. They probably do have an idea for Skuin, but they didn't see it, is what I meant. And here we go. Cannon Rush coming out. Razzle's actually gone quite low to this. Shadow trying to get in. Denick trying to act as a bodyguard, but here we go! Oh, it's Febiven who secures it. Razzle has to flash away. He's ticking down to the Ignite. Dan now with a massive haymaker. Long-range Moonlight Vigil from the side. The showstopper. Dan not able to get it, but B-Boy just ripping them apart. Shadow able to dodge around. He jumps back in. Shadow, what are you doing? Oh, Shadow, you're madman! Couldn't quite get it. Bebby able to survive, and now he's going to run towards those Nexus towers.
Heroic moment from Shadow right there to try to save the day, but they get multiple Barons out. Excuse me, multiple Barons. He got one Baron out. I was saying, yeah, heroic movement from Shadow.
Yeah, I was a doubter for Skuin, but he somehow managed to get 2 out of that fight. Thought he was just diving into his demise. And they were chanting a minute ago, I promise you.
The cameraman's like, I've got the crowd, the 6th man behind them. The crowd goes silent. You had your moment, guys. Okay, so the Baron setup goes. Shadow does get into the pit, but Febiven, I mean, technically the smite goes down, and then Febiven gets him out of the pit, but we'll say Febiven saved the day there. But the big hero move is obviously Shadow on the back half of this play, as that Aphelios damage was disgusting.
Yeah. B-Boy just starts ripping through them in Shadow. I'm just thinking he's going to jump away, but he hits the Sonic Wave, and then he's going hell for leather into them.
Is almost able to get it done with the shield, but Febiven cleans him up at the end. And again, only a single Baron on this Azir. I thought at first that Sejuani had also made it out, but died at the very beginning of that fight.
She did. You can see B-Boy topping the damage shots, 5,700 in that last fight. Razork, 26, lol.
Died at the very beginning of the fight.
You still get to call him out. Do want to see if another fight does erupt, whether Kazi can get a good bullet time off, because so far the Braum has been blocking him out, he's been getting locked down, Razork's been jumping in. It's very hard for him to do too much as Misfits push in bot.
We're in another situation though, where Humanoid's trying to get back to his team as quickly as possible.
Not quick enough. He's still got the teleport. They're going to dive on Dan. Showstopper coming out. Razork coming in with a Glacial Prison. And now the chase is on. The Fissure doesn't quite connect. Mad have been able to disengage Humanoid now here, but the inhibitor should be the target for Misfits as they push in. 6,000 gold ahead. 2 inhibits to none. They'll go towards mid. Mad, is this your final stand? Mad Lions looking for pride at least in this fight. But Misfits will just take the inhib and force Mad back once again.
They don't have a lot of options. They didn't have Kaiser's ultimate, Shadow's ultimate, or Gangplank's ult. So unfortunately at that point, Mad were just trying to staunch the bleeding. If they engage, then maybe you try to dissuade them through Misfortune's ult. And with all of those key cooldowns down, Misfits continuing to push their luck here.
Yeah, Baron buff is about to expire. You can see not the biggest Baron power play in terms of gold, but they got all 3 inhibs. So I think Misfits are very happy with the way that one's gone. Maybe not got the item timers that they want on this back because they continue to push in.
And at this point, they're just trying to fish for that final inhib. If Misfits see their opening, which they have Sejuani's ultimate back available to them, of course they're going to try to take the fight. But otherwise, you're probably just waiting for the Infernal Soul.
Yep. 3 minutes away for that Dragon. Misfits have got 2 of them already, buffing up the AD and AP. And now Dennick's going to step forward, rooted up. Dan has the flank. Showstopper locks up one. Humanoid is right in the middle of the team taken out. And the bullet time really doesn't do too much. Right between the goalposts. Misfits now will get... Oh, Aphelios ult. Long range, the Moonlight Vigil. And the chase, you can see the damage coming down already. Kaiser has to jump away, but he has already been killed. And now Mad Lions only have 1 inhibitor tower. Their Shadow kicks him away, gets 1. The chase is on. Arome Shadow able to escape for the moment, but he will be taken down by Forbidden in the end. And now it's Kazi and Arome versus the world. And these Mad Lions really, well, their bark was worse than their bite. Misfits once again shuffle in. Forbidden's gonna fall, but the Nexus should be the target next. Misfits, for at least 1 game, are gonna claim first place by themselves in the LEC. And in all honesty, 7 games in a row this team has won. 7 games in a row with 2 rookies, a guy you brought over from South America, a guy who played